a journey through time to understand how the term literature, a word we use so casually today, was shaped and reshaped by civilization over thousands of years. From the wisdom of ancient scribes to the Renaissance's artistic renaissance, and all the way to its modern-day interpretations, literature is a word whose meaning carries the essence of human imagination. But what did it mean, and how did we get here? In antiquity, the concept of literature wasn't known by the term we use today. Instead, people referred to their writings with words that described their utility. In ancient Mesopotamia, for instance, the Sumerians inscribed cuneiform texts on clay tablets, not for entertainment or artistry, but for preserving knowledge. The famous Epic of Gilgamesh, often considered the world's first great written work, was both a mythological and moral guide. The Greeks had a clearer delineation as time passed. For Aristotle, literature, or rather poetry, was classified as mimesis or imitation. It was a way of reflecting life, whether through epic poetry like Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, or dramatic plays like those of Sophocles. But the Greeks didn't have a single term equivalent to literature, as we know it. Their writings were often treated more by genre, whether poetry, history, or philosophy, rather than a unified artistic field. The Romans, however, gave us an early glimpse of the modern usage of literatura. In Latin, litera meant letter, and literatura referred to the act of writing, especially with an educational or scholarly quality. Roman writings from Virgil's Aeneid to Cicero's philosophical works carried with them an air of decorum and cultural legacy. They were methods to teach civic virtue, yet they also embraced creativity and linguistic beauty. For the Romans, literature was beginning to evolve into something that combined the functional with the artistic. This is truly where the term literature began to swoop upward into its modern shape. Something extraordinary happened during this period. The rediscovery of antiquity's texts, combined with a radical rethinking of human potential. This was an age that saw Dante, Petrarch, and Boccaccio in Italy ignite a flame of narrative innovation. Petrarch, often considered the father of humanism, believed in the individual capacity for greatness, and his writings reflected a new harmony between earthly life and eternal pursuits. Above all, Renaissance literature began to shift focus inward to human thought, emotion, and creativity. But then, the fall of the Western Roman Empire brought with it a sort of literary recession. Much of what was written in the early medieval period focused on religious texts, produced by monks in monasteries. Literature, if we can call it that, during this era was less about human creativity and more about the divine word. It was about conveying truths rooted in faith and morality, with figures like St. Augustine's Confessions, blending rhetoric with theological exploration. And then came the Renaissance. This is truly where the term literature began to swoop upward into its modern shape. Something extraordinary happened during this period. The rediscovery of antiquity's texts, combined with a radical rethinking of human potential. This was an age that saw Dante, Petrarch, and Boccaccio in Italy ignite a flame of narrative innovation. Petrarch, often considered the father of humanism, believed in the individual capacity for greatness, and his writings reflected a new harmony between earthly life and eternal pursuits. Above all, Renaissance literature began to shift focus inward, to human thought, emotion, and creativity. And let's not forget Shakespeare. Oh, Shakespeare, the voice of Renaissance England. Plays like Hamlet and Romeo and Juliet aren't just stories. They're living tapestries, questioning what it means to be human, drenched in love, ambition, betrayal, and truth. It was also in the Renaissance when the printing press, thanks to Johannes Gutenberg, made literature something more accessible to the masses. Suddenly, literature wasn't the domain of monarchs or monks, but a gift to a growing, hungry reading public. Literature turned into an engine of social critique, entertainment, and artistic expression. Even the term itself underwent a change during these pivotal years. Literature began to separate somewhat from rhetoric and philosophy, emerging as an art form in its own right. The French word littérature, traced to the late Renaissance, starts pointing clearly to fiction, poetry, and drama, works defined by their emotional and aesthetic value rather than purely educational use. The Enlightenment and Romantic eras continued to build on this momentum. For many thinkers of the Enlightenment, spreading philosophical and scientific ideas through written word, such as through Diderot's encyclopédie, became critical. Literature continued to evolve, especially as its audience diversified. The 19th century Romanticism embraced the opposite: emotion, nature, and rebellion against industrial monotony. The works of voices like Mary Shelley, Goethe, and Pushkin drew attention to imagination itself. Literature, then, grew closer to its modern definition: a broad field of written or artistic works capturing the human essence. And here we are today, where literature stands as a term encompassing fiction, nonfiction, poetry, prose, novels, plays, and more. It continues to expand, integrating technological forms like digital storytelling, while maintaining its roots in what makes us uniquely human: the ability to reflect, question, and celebrate our world through words. It's fascinating, isn't it? The term literature, born alongside the first written letters of humanity, has flourished into so much more than ink on a page. It's a mirror of society, a window into individual souls, and a declaration of what it means to imagine. From the clay tablets of Mesopotamia to the digital books of today, literature is not just a word, it's a journey.